Hey guys, gals, women and children, how's it going? Shout out to everybody that's emailed me lately. I'm going through the emails. I've had a lot, and I've had some good questions. Always happy to answer your guys, questions or where to get parts. Or again, one of the number one questions I get through email, to the point I can't even answer them all, is I have a saw. I have a 394, a 372, whatever, 56 Magnum. Whatever I have XYZ saw, will you port it? And the answer is always, I will not. Not because I don't want to, but to be perfectly honest, friends, having a family, a large property, and a full-time job, and a YouTube channel, I've always said that I am, I think I live life to the fullest. I don't sleep much, and I'm always on the move. I'm a busy guy, and I don't think I could ever add saw builds to the equation. So that's why I've always chosen to show you guys what I'm doing via this medium, which is YouTube, and that way you guys could copy what I do. Guys, porting is not difficult. It just takes time, patience, and practice. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't port a saw, because you don't have the same tools as them or you don't have a lathe. That's rubbish. You could port a good saw without a lathe and nothing more than a Dremel. The first couple of years of this channel, go back. If you weren't here then, I used the Dremel to do all those saws, and I built some good stuff back then. So, what are we doing today? Well, we are going to, let's do the intake on the 064. I'll show you guys exactly what I'm doing. I think I'm going to retool. I'm going to dig through my saws. I'm looking on the shelf right now. I'm going to do another how to port a power saw series, step by step. And I think I know what saw I'm going to do. I don't think I'm going to do it on a big saw. I think I'll do it on something smaller, so maybe it kind of translates better. I understand a lot of you guys don't find big saws where you live. And again, I understand there aren't a lot of big saws here where I live. I find them. I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm always looking for saws. There was a bunch at the auction the other day, some 562s and some more 441s. I bid on them a little bit, but I didn't get them, friends. I really wanted those 562s, but they went way too high. There's no way I'm buying a clapped out 562. I'd be into that thing for $700 by the time you bought all the parts. So, not for me. All the power to those that did buy them, though. Maybe you have a part saw or whatever. But anyhow, friends, today's video, let's look at the 064 and let's talk about intakes. Let's get right into it. My thoughts on intakes. Am I right? No. Am I wrong? No. I just show you guys what I'm doing. There's other ways to do it. This is my thoughts on intakes. Let's look at the intake on this saw and let's talk about how everything relates to each other, okay? Everything you do has to work with everything else you do. So let's look at this cylinder and talk about it. Okay, last video. Oh, and again, friends, I didn't do Friday night in the shop this week. Friday night was my Christmas party at work, so go hang out with the boys and break some bread. So we skipped it. Here's my lower transfers. You guys can see what I've done there. I'll grab a stock cylinder. Here it is right here. Okay, these transfers aren't small. The upper transfers are bigger than this one, but okay. And then we move over to this. Way bigger. Okay. Now, the reason why I did that, and I mentioned this in the last video, is the transfers are too small in my opinion, and they block the windows, okay? Your piston windows. If your transfers are narrow and they block up to, say, where my thumb is, from there over to here, that is going to slow air down. And you want as much air and fuel going to the top of your piston through your upper transfers as possible, okay? So, and I've gotten flack for this over the years. I'm not sure why. I mean, I'm not, friends, I'm not invested in this enough to really care what anybody else is doing. Other people do weird things, in my opinion, but their saws run. So what does that tell you? Am I right? Absolutely not. So I just do what I do, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And if this was easy and everything worked, I'd be super bored. I'm like that. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Watch other people and see what they do. There's a lot of other people at Port Saws that make good videos. You do you. Your hand does the grinding, and your grinding might work different than mine because your hand did it. But anyways, my idea is to get rid of the blockages. Now, I didn't add a ton of case capacity, but I added some. Case capacity is everything below, okay? Everything below the upper transfers until they open, okay? So when the piston comes down, the upper transfers are closed. The sooner you open them, the less pressure you build when the piston is going downwards, right? Okay, right? Your piston goes up. It's only drawing a vacuum until your intake is open. And it's also only squeezing until your upper transfer's open. Okay? This bottom end is sealed. That's why we worry about leakages here and there. And in the intake, this bottom end needs to be sealed. Okay? So, it's very simple, but very complicated. There's a lot going on in these. I've done a cutaway series, but so the idea is for me is to push as much air through these transfers and open the uppers at the right time. Now, why am I talking about transfers? Because it all relates. Okay? If I open this too soon on the way up, okay, if I really lower this intake, I'm not pulling enough vacuum through here. Okay? You only get vacuum from here to there when the intake opens. So therefore, if I lower the intake, I change how long this case is under pressure. Also, if I hog out these giant transfers, I am adding volume. This small piston pulling on a larger volume will pull less vacuum. Okay? That's how all this works. Also, think of the upper transfers as a timed valve almost, okay? If you raise these higher, you change where the pressure is released. And again, on the way down, this is squeezing it. If you have super high transfers, you are slowing how quickly the pressure leaves these transfers. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, lower transfers, more pressure, less time for the air to fill the upper end. Higher transfers, less pressure, more time. Okay, also less time for the exhaust to leave. If you open these sooner, okay, you might have too much pressure in here and you might be backfeeding, meaning your exhaust pressure is higher than your transfer pressure and you will push exhaust down there. Look at a low, short blowdown saw and tell me if there's soot in the transfers. There often is. Where this OEM cylinder, the one reporting, look how clean those are. Why? Long blowdown. You decide what's better for you. Okay, so what we're focusing on today is the intake on this saw on the 064. Here it is right here. Now I time this 148 total degrees of opening, okay? Now look at the shape of it. It's got these little ears here, right there. Okay, it's kind of flat on the bottom, but it's rounded. This is a really nice intake, in my opinion. It's very nicely shaped. It's square on the sides. It feeds really well, I bet. And from what I'm told, these saws run really well. So what are we doing when we're modifying any intake? The one thing I'm going to tell you is don't add too much. When you first start porting, you're going to go in there and you're going to hog everything out. I did, because more is better, right? You want to grind everything. Well, no, that's not. If you over intake, remember how you're changing the vacuum. You're changing everything. If you over intake this, often you will overfill, and as the piston's coming down, you will build too much pressure in the bottom and it'll spit back. And you all have a saw that doesn't idle very well because you're pushing that back into the carburetor, which will make the saw rich and it will die at idle. The inverse of that, you add big transfers like this, and you have a stock intake, you may not pull enough fuel in there to fill the bottom end. Well, then you're going to have a saw that doesn't want to, you know, pull higher RPM. So it's all a balance. What balance you find works for you, I cannot tell you. What am I going to do with this? Well, this is about 148. I am going to lower this just a hair. And by a hair, I mean about that much. Okay? Let's look at what. Okay, let's zero this. I'm going to lower this about that much. Maybe 40 thousandths. Okay? That should get me about 4 degrees, and I'm going to end up at 152 total intaking. Okay, I'm lowering this 2 degrees of opening. Okay, well, that means it opens sooner and it closes later. 2 degrees opening sooner and 2 degrees closing later is 4 degrees. So 148 plus 4 is 152. Okay, I'm going to go in here and start porting this, and I will jump back in every so often to show you guys what I'm doing. Check that out. Again, let's look at this one. This one is over intaked. Okay, and I showed you this in the last video comparing these. This one opens too soon in my opinion. It's in the 160s. This saw would run, but I have a feeling it would probably be a little bit of a picky idler just because of the stock timing. Okay, look at that. And I'll hit you guys back up. It's a couple minutes later, and I ground from the inside or outside in. See my finger outside in, and you can't even see what I did, and that's what the point I'm trying to make, is that you can't really eyeball intake timing. I made a small line with a felt marker approximating how much I wanted. I'm just adding a little bit of intake timing, and I'm going to do some reshaping, and I'm going to try it like that. I find Stihls like less. Husqvarna, you get away with a little more. Stihl's a little bit less. So could that be to do with case capacity? You decide. Okay, so I have this where I think it's going to be good. And then all I do, friends, if you don't want to put the saw together and, you know, look, you know, rotate it to check. You got to check to see how it opens. Okay, this thing opens pretty much uniformly in the middle. You could probably take a little more off that side. Okay, that's how I check it. If you don't want to do it this way, check it with the saw together. I want it to open in the middle, and you can see it's opening slightly to this side. So I'm going to grind this side just a little bit. Okay, I just took 2 or 3 swipes off of it. Look, you can see now. It's opening uniformly in the middle, both sides. I'm going to leave it like that because the more I grind, sorry friends, the more I grind, the more intake timing I get. Okay, now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to grind the corners just to give it a little more width, just a hair. And I think I'm going to call it a day. I am not going to lung this intake because I don't want both rings in there. I'd like to keep one sealed because if the other intake, or if both rings go through there, I'm not sealing on my downstroke. I don't really want to do that. So I'm going to leave this. So all I'm going to do is widen it a bit and then texture it. Okay. I like my intakes rough in certain spots. Okay. So check that out. I'm going to go back in here and grind. It's probably going to take me a couple minutes. Now what I did, I took a straight edge, use a piece of metal, a small ruler. I have a small machinist ruler that I use, or a piece of cardboard, whatever you want. Okay, cardboard works. Use what you have. And I marked the sides. This one you can't see, but I marked them so they're both the same. Okay, I'm gonna use this as a guide to go in and just widen my intake just a hair. Okay, and shape it so it goes in. I kind of want it to feed these transfers a little bit better. Be aware, make sure there's enough overlap, okay, beside your transfers. Don't make it too small because you could get bleeding in between there and create yourselves a poor running saw, and it'll be impossible to figure out. Okay, always leave yourself enough room. Same thing with the exhaust side. Make sure your exhaust isn't too wide as opposed to your transfers. I mean, that's not as much of a problem, but just be aware how everything relates. Okay, I'm going to go in here and grind. And there's the left side. I'll probably grind the top just a little bit more. Okay, see that? Right up to the edge. That's literally 6 or 7 swipes at high speed with good lube on there. It doesn't take much, friends. Porting becomes easier and easier the more you do it. I'll just hit that top corner and I'll show you guys. There you go. I blended in that top corner. Okay, now I'll do the other side. And again, if you're new at this, check your tooling. Put your tool. That's what I'm using. Put your tool in your Fordham or your Dremel and make sure you can reach. Okay, you don't want to find out you can't reach when you're already in there. Now I'll just do the other side and they'll match. And there's the other side. This is my strong side. I prefer to start at the top and roll in. For this side, I start at the bottom and went down. I always find one side is always easier to grind than the other. So usually I'll do my weak side first and then the strong side because I have more control and I can match a little bit better. So all I'm going to do is probably drag this over just a hair so it matches a little bit better. And there we go. Notice this intake is slightly biased to this side. So we need to go in there and grind the corners of this side to make it match. Okay, just like that. Decide what tool you're going to use, and the tool denotes the shape. Okay? So that's all I do. I use the tool as the shape of the top corners, and that way they match a little bit better. I'll go in and blend this corner and that corner and make this thing symmetrical. Okay, just like that. See how I've opened it up a little bit at the bottom? Okay, so I still got to hit this corner a little bit. Do the best that I can to make it match. Well, that's pretty symmetrical now. I could go in with a smaller tool and get these corners. Like I said, this is my weak side. That's my strong side. So just the way my hand grinds better. Notice it's pretty symmetrical. Okay, now I'm going to go in and just drag this out a little bit. And I'm also going to go in and do a little bit of texturing to the top. I want this a little bit rougher. I want the air to bend down and go into the bottom end. Okay, so I'll just go in and finish this up and we have an intake. And there it is finished. I gotta hit this side. Oh, I guess it's not finished. I'm trying to square up that side. Just a hair. It's close though, friends. Very close. Give me a second here. It's bothering me. Okay, take 19. That's about as good as I'm getting it. And I think that'll work well. It's pretty symmetrical. Although this side... Okay, one more time, friends. Just laugh with me. And maybe at me. Okay. Very symmetrical. This is what it takes. Just a little here, a little there. You know, gentle, light passes. Just, you know. Now notice it's straight in now. I've gotten rid of... There used to be a little corner there and there. I've gotten rid of that. Okay, straight in. And yes, it is rough. That's how I do it. One of these days, well, it's coming up, I'm going to be taking apart my Harley because I got an oil leak, big shock there. I'm going to take my top end off. That saw has super high dollar, high-end ported cylinder heads. And I bet when you look at them, you know, these are done by a professional with a CNC. I bet when you look at them, there'll be roughness in there. I'll be shocked if it's shiny. I don't know because I've never been in there, but I guess we'll find out. But there you guys go. There's my intake. It is wider, slightly lowered, and I think this is going to work good. I will not do the finishing. The last step is to chamfer the edge. You can feel a sharpness here with my finger. That will cut the piston up something fierce. You want to break that edge. We're going to do that separately in another video. Okay, so there you go. Big lower transfers and some intake work. Well, there's an intake that took, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes with filming and all that kind of stuff. Intakes are where you can ruin the saw. Well, intake and exhaust are where you can ruin the saw the quickest. Take your time. Small, light cuts. Trust me, especially on an exhaust. If you cut too high on this side, well, you're probably going to want to make that match. So same thing with an intake. Just light passes. Check your work often and measure often. And that way you can control where you're ending up. If you go in there and just hog it out, you're going to put the saw back together. And you're going to go, wow, I suddenly have 165 degrees of total timing. And guess what? Your saw is probably not going to idle. Then you're going to have to go back in there with JB weld, make a dam, put your JB weld in there and grind it again. And hopefully not going too far a second time. So like I said, light passes, take your time. It's not that hard. You just got to take your time. Wear reading glasses or some kind of a magnifier. I do have a helmet with a 4x magnifier on it. I wear that sometimes, and a lot of light. I use lights all over the place that are mounted to my table, and I shine right into there so I can see exactly what I'm doing. Other than that, friends, it's not that difficult. Just like I said, take your time. Anyhow, I'm going to go back into the house where it's warm because I'm losing the battle here. I got hardwood in the wood stove at just absolutely cranking, and it's still a little chilly in here. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Take her easy. See you in a couple days. Later.